Good day everyone, I am Vina Tadena and I will talk about group decision making, neuroscience of decision making, and deductive reasoning. Let's have group decision making first. So when it comes to decision making, are two heads better than one? Groups form decisions differently than individuals, and there are benefits to making decisions in groups. It was believed that working as a group can enhance the effectiveness of decision making, just as it can enhance the effectiveness of problem solving, for it has the advantage of drawing from experiences and perspective of a larger number of individuals. There is also an increase in resources and ideas, like for instance, each can contribute different ideas because each member may have different thinking or concepts based on their background and experiences. And another benefit of group decision making is improved group memory over individual memory. In fact, many companies now combine individuals into teams to improve decision making because by forming it, the group benefits from the expertise of each of the members in the group. So groups that are successful in decision-making display or shows a number of similar characteristics, such as the group is small, for it is believed that by making the group small, each person feels more responsible and effective. It has also open communication, so this is important to maintain the good relationship within the group, or members must communicate with each other to avoid misunderstandings within the group. Members also must share a common mindset or perspective in order for them to achieve its goal, like embracing challenges always with positivity or to be positive always when faced with difficulties. Members identify with the group and members agree on acceptable group behavior, like to always follow the work roles, to maintain work group cohesiveness, conformity to group norms, for it tells the group members what is expected of them or what is acceptable and what is not within the group. However, there can be disadvantages associated with group decision making, and one of these disadvantages is called groupthink that seriously impairs the quality of the decisions made by the group. So groupthink is a phenomenon characterized by premature decision-making that is generally the result of group members attempting to avoid conflict. One real-world example of groupthink is the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Many of the senior officers at Pearl Harbor did not take seriously all the warnings from Washington, D.C. about the potential invasion. Many of them disregard the sign, for they believe that Japanese would not dare to attempt an attack against US because they would recognize that it's somehow pointless or impractical having a war with the United States. Another example would be the collapse of Swiss Air. The airline was once so financially stable. In fact, it was once called the Flying Bank. However, they began to believe they were indestructible or they feel secure, and as a result of failing to question poor decisions and mismanagement, the airline eventually went bankrupt. So problems in group can occur anytime and is inevitable, and it is important to know the conditions or reasons that leads to such problem. And so Jhane cited 3 conditions that leads to groupthink. First is an isolated, cohesive, and homogeneous group is empowered to make decisions. So high levels of cohesiveness, for instance, decreases the amount of verbal disagreement within a tight group due to interpersonal pressure to conform. This high level of cohesiveness also creates self-censorship and apparent unanimity within the group. So normally, group disagreement is necessary for good decision-making because it introduces different perspective to the decision-making process. Another condition that leads to groupthink is objective and impartial leadership is absent. within the group or outside it. The leadership or the way an individual manages the group can also lead to groupthink, since complete control over the group by the leader can cause an environment in which no one states their own opinions. Like for example, in the military where extreme leadership is implemented, group discussions are tightly controlled and disagreement therefore tend to be suppressed out of respect for the leader's authority. The third condition is high level of stress impinge on the group's decision-making process. It happens when a group is forced to make an important decision where each member of the group feel a certain amount of insecurity, and members of a group will attempt to reduce this decisional stress through any possible means. However, attempts by members to reduce the stress associated with decision-making often results in groupthink. But then, we might think and ask what exactly groupthink is. So here are the 6 symptoms of groupthink described by Janice, 1971. First is close-mindedness. It is when members or member of the group is not open to alternative ideas. Second is rationalization. It is when the group goes to great lengths to justify both the process and product of its decision-making, distorting reality where necessary in order to be persuasive. Squelching of dissent is another symptom of groupthink. It happens when those who disagree with the group are ignored, criticized, or not accepted. Another is formation of a mind guard for the group. This happens when one person appoints himself or herself as the keeper of the group norm and ensure that people stay in line. The fifth would be feeling invulnerable. It is when the group members believes that it must be right given the intelligence of its members and the information available to them. And the last symptom would be feeling unanimous. It is when members believe that everyone unanimously shares the opinions expressed by the group. However, Janice suggested several antidotes or solutions to prevent the occurrence of groupthink. So in a group, for example, the leader of a group should encourage constructive criticism, like instead of being hurt or discouraged by others' criticism, they should accept and use it as a motivation for them to become better or to do better. Be impartial or be fair or neutral among all members in accepting ideas and when making decisions, and ensure that members seek input from people outside the group. In addition, in order to accomplish its goals, a group must differentiate the work activities of its members and consider alternative or another solutions to a single problem, as well as leader must take responsibility to prevent false or fake conformity to a group norm. Now, let's talk about neuroscience of decision making. So what specific areas of our brain is responsible when it comes in decision making and problem solving? Or which part of the brain play a prominent roles in decision making? So in problem solving, the prefrontal cortex, particularly the anterior cingulate cortex, is active during the decision-making process. So the prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex are parts of the brain located at the front of the frontal lobe and is often described as subserving decision-making and executive control. Neuroscience holds that people make decisions based on integrated global calculations that occur within the frontal cortex of the brain. In fact, there's one study of Fishbein et al. 2005 about drug abusers' decision-making where researchers identified a number of areas which involve in risky decisions. So they studied drug abusers because drug abuser produces risky decisions, and they found decreased activation in the left anterior cingulate cortex of drug abusers, which suggests that during decision making, the anterior cingulate cortex is involved in the consideration of potential rewards. In addition, another study was conducted by Heweg et al. 2008, having a healthy participants played the gambling game blackjack. The researchers found that suboptimal decisions, which is too risky or too cautious, were associated with increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex. Also, the amount of gain associated with a decision affects the amount of activation observed in the parietal region. Parietal region is an area of our brain associated with somatosensory processing. So in one study conducted by Platt and Glimcher 1999, they used monkeys' brain to know what specific areas of the brain is somehow responsible in terms of making decisions, and they found out that explorations of decision-making in monkeys have noted activation in the parietal regions of the brain. So before I'll proceed to deductive reasoning, let me define first the word reasoning for us to deeply understand its two types, which is the deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. So in making decisions or making any judgment, it involves assessing or evaluating all the choices and selecting one over the other, and this kind of thinking is called reasoning. So reasoning basically is the process of drawing conclusions from principles and from evidence. It is the ability of the mind to think and understand things in a logical way. So in reasoning, we move from what is already known to infer a new conclusion or to evaluate a proposed conclusions. And so deductive reasoning is the process of reasoning from one or more general statements regarding what is known to reach a logically certain conclusion. Basically, it is a type of thinking that starts with a general idea and reaches a specific conclusion. So, deductive reasoning is based on logical propositions. A proposition is basically an assertion or simply a statement which may be either true or false. Like for example, BS psychology students wear white uniforms, or BS psychology students are brilliant. Premises, on the other hand, are propositions about which arguments are made. These premises are used to reach a specific logical conclusions, meaning premises are propositions or statements that support a certain conclusion. Note that all premises are propositions, but not all propositions are premises. We can only say that propositions are premises only when they relate to each other in a way that we can build an argument with relative conclusion out from them. Otherwise, they're just plain propositions. So in deductive reasoning, we always starts out with a general statement which is relative to other statement or premise, then examines the possibilities to reach a specific logical conclusion. For example, we have this argument where the first premise states that all students who are taking up BS Psychology are members of the CSU Psychology Society organization. The second premise states that Grace is taking up BS Psychology at Caraga State University. We can infer or conclude that Grace, therefore, is a member of Caraga State University Psychology Society organization because she is taking up BS Psychology at Caraga State University. Observe that the argument started with general statement that everyone in the BS Psychology program is a member of the organization and ended specifically to Grace being a member of the organization. We came up to this conclusion because of the two premises that support it. So cognitive psychologists are interested particularly in propositions that may be connected in ways that require people to draw reasoned conclusions. Thus, deductive reasoning is useful because it helps people connect various propositions to draw conclusions.